everyone, Rio here. Today we have Saturn square Uranus, which is a very, it's like the innovator and the rebel coming up against the traditionalist and the conformist in the sky, essentially. And I just thought that it was a perfect day to be a little rebel and kick the walls down a bit and talk about the history of tropical astrology and a little bit about, sort of in foil, true sidereal astrology as it's known, and as it's also known, constellational astrology, which is something that I'm really into lately and I'm exploring. And I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to think. I'm just inviting you to open yourself up to exploring what's actually going on in the stars. And I've been doing a little bit of research, and by no means has it been exhaustive, but I have found some interesting findings that I want to talk with you all about. Because the tropical party line tends to be that, just to give super basics on the subject. So tropical astrology is keyed to the seasons, and certain signs are associated with certain seasons. And as we move into those seasons, those are the signs that we're in the season of, according to tropical astrology. In constellational or true sidereal astrology, this is geared to the actual stars still. So we look up in the sky, we say, the sun is in Aquarius at this moment, which actually matches tropical. We've got a little bit of overlap for once, so that's cool. Well, not for once. It happens all the time, but for short periods of time. I digress. So, true sidereal, constellational, stars, tropical, seasonal. And when you start learning about this, and a lot of people, when they find out, tropical astrology, mainstream astrology doesn't actually match the stars anymore, what's up with that? When you start asking questions like this, the automatic sort of response from the astrology community tends to be, it's been linked to the seasons for a very long time. It's been we've known that it's been linked to the seasons for a very long time. And most importantly, that was on purpose. Okay, so this is the idea that I'd like to call into question a little bit today. And, it's when I was first learning astrology, I really accepted that. And I was like, okay, well, this is the way it's done. This is the way it's been done for a very, very long time. And we know that. And this is just NASA people trying to make astrologers feel dumb because they don't even have it linked to the stars, but we actually know that it's not linked to the stars. So that's fine. It's just the way it's done, and I accepted that, right? But as I learned more about actual natal charts, I started to have questions about things. And I would ask questions, and no one would really have the answers to them. And I just assumed it was something in the astronomy that I wasn't understanding. And then fairly recently, I finally understood all of the astronomy, and what it really just comes down to is that it just doesn't match up, one, and two, tons of astrologers out there just don't really know that much about astrology, right? It really is very, very removed from the stars at this point. So the question is, was that actually on purpose, And so a lot of people sort of bring it back to Ptolemy as the person who really, some people credit him for tropical astrology entirely, which isn't true. Tropical was being used before he wrote his books on astrology. But it does seem to be accepted knowledge that he really brought tropical astrology into popular thought and cemented it as the way things are done, right? So, I've just been really curious, is this did they actually decide no, we're going to remove it from the stars and link it to the seasons on purpose? Or was it perhaps a mistake? So in an effort to learn what is true, pretty much, I started going back and reading Ptolemy's books on astrology. He's got 4 of them. They were all combined into this book known as the Tetrabiblos, which I may or may not be pronouncing correctly. But I wanted to go back to the source and see if it was Ptolemy who decided that this is the way it is. I want to see his explanation for it, And so I went back to his books, and thus far, there isn't one. Okay? What do we know about Ptolemy? He was a mathematician. He was an astronomer. Back in the day, all astrologers were also astronomers. They didn't have computer programs that would link up, whatever they wanted to. If they wanted to know what was going on, they looked in the sky, right? And for that reason is part of, once I came to this sort of organically, the issue that I had with the story that tropical astrology, we changed it on purpose. Because all astrologers back then were astronomers. They were looking at the sky. So there's something a little bit funky in that story, And Ptolemy was well known as someone who, A, was an astronomer, who, B, believed the Earth was the center of the universe. Okay? So the question becomes, was his intention to remove astrology from the stars and link them to the seasons on purpose? Or, in an effort to make a very neat and tidy system, which tropical is, especially, I imagine back when it did match up with the seasons, it would have seemed very important, So did he do this on purpose, or did he simply do the best he could at the time with the information that he had at the time, which was categorically, as we know from our perspective now, wrong. The Earth isn't the center of the universe. So anyways, I decided to read the book. I haven't gotten all the way through it, but I've started and I've found some really, really interesting stuff, guys. First of all, this is the very, very first line of the book, if we can trust the translation, right? Because I don't speak ancient Greek. But due to the translation that I've been reading, this is the very first line of the book. Of the means of prediction through astronomy, O Sirius, 2 are the most important and valid. Back it up. Of the means of prediction through astronomy. Further on in the very introduction of the book, my favorite quote that I've found so far. The more important consequences, signified by the more obvious configurations of the sun, moon, and stars, are usually known beforehand, even by those who inquire not by scientific means, but only by observation. Did you hear that? Let me read it one more time. The more important consequences, signified by the more obvious configurations of the sun, moon, and stars, are usually known beforehand, even by those who inquire not by scientific means, but only by observation. So from the mouth of the person who allegedly changed astrology forever in order to key it to the seasons instead of to the stars, says, A, first of all, that this is a means of prediction through astronomy, and B, the evidence of which any person looking at the sky can see that there is a link between heaven and earth. All you really need to do is look. So, he's also got a section on the seasons, right? This is where I would expect to find some sort of explanation as to why this is more important than the stars themselves. And essentially all it says is in springtime, it's Aries. In summer, it's Cancer. In autumn, it's Libra. And in winter, it's Capricorn. There's a chunk on the fixed stars too, where he goes through and talks about the general nature of a crap ton of them. So, like, frankly, this doesn't seem to me like someone who's saying that the stars don't matter. You know, over and over again, when I talk to tropical astrologers about this, I just get the feeling that everyone just does things the way that they've done them because that's how they were taught to do them, and that's how their teachers were taught to do them, you know? But it's kind of based on a mistake made very, very long ago, you know? And I'm open. I came to sidereal by just feeling into the transits and looking like, hey, what is this? Like, you can look at it in like a sky app even, you know? And being like, okay, this is what tropical tells me. This is what is actually happening. If I look in the sky, what does it feel like, you know? And after years of observation, I came to the conclusion that the skies, like the stars, were actually important, you know? And through that brought me to true sidereal, wondering like, well, if the stars are important, then all the stars are important, you know? But point being, I am not telling you how to think, what to do. I'm just bringing up some questions and bringing up what I've found in my own research, going straight back to the quote-unquote original source material. You know, the tropical party line is that we did it on purpose. Ptolemy did it on purpose. You know, we always knew that it was linked to the seasons and not to the stars, and it wasn't a case of just mistaken star identity. Or season identity, I don't know. But, you know, from what I can see from actually reading the original source material, I see no evidence of that at all. Granted, I know there's like hundreds of thousands of books available on astrology, so I'm open, you know? If you know where I should look to find the actual source material that explains that, like, they did it on purpose, awesome. Let me know. I want to know. I want to read it. I want to find out about it. You know, but it seems to me like people were just doing things the way their teachers taught them, who were doing things the way that their teachers taught them, without, especially once like computers were in the game, largely without the fundamental like astronomical knowledge or capabilities or skills, you know, just doing things because that's the way that it's done. And at some point when people start questioning, like, that's a lot of careers on the line, you know, that's a lot to reconcile, being like, oh crap, there was just one giant mistake made, you know. But the alleged forefather of this tradition was an astronomer. All of the real forefathers of this tradition were astronomers. They looked at the sky. That's how they found out what was going on. You know, and at some point, I think it maybe just became too hard to admit the error. I don't know. Those are just my thoughts, you know, and on Saturn square Uranus day, it's just a day to be a bit of a rebel and like blow out some traditions, you know, which really, I'm trying to like fuck with the traditions by bringing up the actual traditions, which is looking at the sky. But yeah, like I said, you do you. But I invite you to explore things and see how you feel about it. I hope you have a fabulous day. I love you all. Keep being curious, keep exploring, and yeah, see ya.